What's up guys, and welcome back to the shop. Today we're gonna swap out the front tire on this Yamaha R7, and I wanna explain to you why I feel it's important that you could do the job on your own. So let's get this thing on the lift real quick. Now I personally don't really like mechanics, guys. I've been screwed over so many times in my life, which is why I learned how to do a lot of this stuff myself. And I did a lot of car flipping back in the day, so I bought most of these tools that I own and lifts and stuff with flipping cars, so I always had fun doing that. But I got screwed over too many times, so I figured out how to do it myself. Now, not all mechanics are bad, and everyone honestly makes mistakes. But really, the only person that cares about your equipment and your stuff is you. While I was in Texas, I got an incredibly good deal on this front tire. My previous one was absolutely toast, and I truly should not have been riding on it anymore. So I agreed to let them do it. The deal was so good.
Hence why I don't trust any mechanic to work on anything I own.
Yeah, so much for that. Got home from Texas, I noticed while I was washing the bike, first off, I was missing the valve cap, which obviously not that important, not a big deal, it happens. And then I noticed I was missing this pinch bolt here. That's awesome. And while I was washing it, I decided, well, I'll spin the front tire. And it spins and sounds like crap. So that totally sucks, guys. That means most likely it was definitely not re-greased, nor was it torqued properly. And then I noticed he probably didn't have the right hex key, so he just marred the crap out of my axle bolt. So that's awesome too. So enough complaining, we'll go ahead and pull this thing off real quick. We'll clean it up, we'll put some white lithium grease back on it, and I'll show you guys how to install this properly and torque it properly. So that when it's time for you to get your new front tire, you could just pop your front tire off, just like I did for the installation on the rear tire. And if you haven't seen that, I'll go ahead and link that right here. But the best and easiest way, in my opinion, to get new tires is one, be able to take them off yourself. Two, you take them into Cycle Gear, let Cycle Gear swap them out for you, and then reinstall them on your own. And then you know it's done properly. So let's get this thing going. Obviously, you don't need to have a motorcycle lift to do this, but you do need to have these two stands. You want a front and rear stand of some sort. So for me, because the way I like to do it is I want to start with my motorcycle on the ground because it's going to be easier for me to loosen my axle nut and my pinch bolt. Now this bike only has one pinch bolt on it, and it is going to be a 6mm hex key. Obviously I've already bought another one, so we'll just loosen it up. We don't have to remove it. And then our axle nut here is going to be a 14mm hex key. And I am using all 3/8. Hopefully mine isn't way over torqued and the 3/8 will let me take this off. Maybe not. Might have to be a breaker bar. Hopefully yours isn't on as tight as mine is. Oh yeah, a breaker bar would have been a little bit easier in this instance. All right, axle nut is loose. I'm gonna go ahead and put her back up on the stand. And now we're gonna go after these two caliper bolts, because we have to remove this caliper mainly because of how deep they sit within here. They'll actually hit your rims. So we're gonna go ahead and take our calipers off, which are a 12mm socket. There's one loose. There's the other one. We'll pull these caliper bolts out. Slide our caliper back, try not to hit our rim. And you're gonna have to fight these cables and cords. There we go. Caliper is off. Now we got to get it on the other side. Same two 12mm bolts on this side. Wire bracket is kind of in the way. And then the next thing we have to remove is our ABS sensor, which is a 4mm hex key. And that'll remove that bracket there. We'll go ahead and take the bolt out. Now you don't want to get this thing dirty. You can check it to see if debris is collecting on it. Now we can remove our other caliper off of the rotor. And there we go. And now that all that is done, we can come back to our axle nut and keep on taking it out. Now to make it come out easier, you can lift up with your left hand there on the tire. There we go. She's coming, she's just fighting a little bit. Those things dropping are our spacers, and we have one on each side. So we'll remove our spacer there. The other one had already fallen out, so we'll set it to the side here. So there's our tire removed. Be very careful not to get any grease or anything on the rotors. But with the spacers removed, we're able now to take this to Cycle Gear and get our new tire installed. So now that I have the front tire removed, I'm gonna take the time to clean off every part in here that I possibly can. just to make sure I'm not getting any more of that grinding sound that I got from the last tire change, and make sure that none of these parts need to be replaced or anything like that, because that would suck. But when you're riding the bike and all this is torqued way too tight, it definitely starts messing stuff up. So we're just gonna make sure she's nice and cleaned out, get as much of this junk out as we possibly can. And we wanna do the same to the rim. Like I said, we wanna make sure we do not touch any of the rotors. Just wanna kinda clean it all up. And we'll wanna clean all the grease, all the old grease off of our axle nut. And we are prepped and ready for reinstallation. So let's go ahead and get her reinstalled back on the bike. Something to remember here is whatever you do, do not touch the front brake while your rotors are off, or it'll become a serious pain in the ass to fix. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm gonna apply some white lithium grease, and you should never get any kind of grease or oil on your hands, which I know I'm terrible about, especially in videos, by not rubbering up. But what we're gonna use here is a white lithium grease. And of course, I'll put that down below if you guys are interested in getting some. But basically, what needs to happen is we're gonna put a little bit in here with this seal, not a lot. We're just gonna make sure we have a little bit in here. And we'll do it on both sides. And then I'm gonna apply a little bit to the axle itself. Now you don't want a ton. There's a little bit on there. So there's our white lithium grease. So don't forget, 2 spacers. We'll go ahead and put those in, 1 on each side. They are the same. And we'll go ahead and lift our rim and tire up. Trying not to knock our spacers out. Finagling and pushing her on in. Now that we got some threads going by hand, and we'll just let her keep going on in. There we go. So now we're not gonna tighten this down. What we're gonna do is just we're gonna get her flush basically, and leave it like that for now. The next thing we're gonna do is reinstall our calipers. Can't go wrong with good old blue 242. We will put Loctite on these caliper bolts. Not a lot, just a little bit. Put a little dab. Oh, a little too much there. Put some on the other one. It's quite a bit. Definitely don't need that much, but whatever. That will work. And we'll lift up and line. There we go. And the cool part about these is you can see there are some protruding ends inside this caliper. These little dowels basically, they actually line up perfectly, which is really cool. They're not just floating on there. So we'll make sure that this bracket, which is probably our ABS wire, make sure this bracket is on and our bolt goes through the bracket and into the brake caliper. Same with this one. We're not going to tighten these all the way. We're just going to get them close by hand. It's good enough. We'll come back over here on the other side and put a little Loctite on our bolts here. Get a little bit on each of the threads. Line up our brake caliper. Oh, got lucky. There we go. That's in there. Don't forget this bracket has got to go over on top like that. And we can put our bolt in. Get our other bolt in. There we go. And remember, we're not going to tighten these. We're just getting them hand tight right now. They'll be slightly loose. And for our ABS sensor goes into the top hole. And our bracket spins around like that. And we can tighten this guy in here. Now this does not take much torque at all. Don't try and kill it. There we go, our ABS is back in play. I'm going to torque the axle nut, which is a 48 foot-pounds. And I'm gonna do this while it's on the ground and not on the stand, because that's a lot of pressure on that little stand and I don't trust it all that much, honestly. There we go. So you can see that's not even that much pressure. With what they did to mine, they obviously just killed it. And we're gonna push up and down on the bike a few times, making sure the suspension is working properly and forcing the axle nut and everything to be perfectly flush and straight. And for the pinch bolt, it is a 17 foot-pounds. There we go, not much. Probably could add blue Loctite if you wanted to that. We need to get it back on the stand, and we need to seat the brakes. And we need to make sure that these brakes are gonna grab right. So we'll spin the tire using the front brake to grab. And at that point, now we can actually torque these 12 millimeters. We are 30 foot-pounds. So torque wrench is ready to go. We'll give her another spin, grab with the brakes, hold the brakes while we're doing this, and torque them down. Total pain in the ass without someone helping, but it is what it is. There's one. And there's two. Last and final step, just make sure that there is no grease or any of the white lithium grease that we put in here that's smashed kind of out. Just make sure it's good and clean. You don't want that stuff thrown all over the rotors. So that about wraps it up, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you guys have a different method or a different way to do it. Maybe some tips and tricks that maybe somebody else doesn't know about or I don't know about that might make it better for all of us and everyone in the community that's actually watching these videos that I'm making. I'd appreciate it. Leave them down below. And if you haven't done the rear tire, watch this video that's coming up next.